The federal agency AmeriCorps has abruptly cut $40 million in grant funds and placed 85% of their staff on administrative leave, which could lead to disrupting programs nationwide, including right here in New Mexico. A Singapore-based solar company that has committed a $1 billion investment to Albuquerque is standing on shaky financial ground as it nears a year of blocked imports to the United States. The city of Albuquerque has shut down their 6th motel in the city this year alone, and a city hearing officer has ordered Quirky Used Books in Albuquerque to remove a homeless encampment from its parking lot. From the Albuquerque Journal, this is the leading news. I'm Gino Gutierrez. It's Friday, May 2nd, and I'll have more on those stories in a few moments, plus a look at the weather forecast on the other side of this break.
This episode is brought to you by the Kirtland Partnership Committee. For 30 years, we've been dedicated to supporting, growing, and preserving the Kirtland National Security Complex. We work tirelessly to enhance military readiness, foster community partnerships, improve quality of life, and promote economic development right here in New Mexico. Join us in our mission to ensure that Kirtland remains a cornerstone of national security and a key provider of quality jobs and investment for all of Greater Albuquerque. Together, we can make a powerful impact. Kirtland Partnership Committee, proudly shaping the future of our national security for 30 years.
The federal agency AmeriCorps has abruptly cut $400 million in grant funds and placed 85% of their staff on administrative leave. The consequences of these actions could disrupt programs nationwide, including right here in New Mexico. With more on the fallout from this, I'm now joined by the Journal's federal government reporter, Kathy Cook. Kathy, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Gino.
So, Kathy, AmeriCorps' decision to cut this funding is going to have ripple effects nationwide, but as far as right here at home, what will this funding cut do to programs here in New Mexico?
So for New Mexico, that means that there's at least 11 organizations based in New Mexico that lost more than $2 million in funding, which is a big chunk of money. And some of these volunteers, some of these AmeriCorps participants were helping at schools. Like we had more than 50 who were working at the Albuquerque Sign Language Academy, which is in Northeast Albuquerque. And, that's a school where 70% of the students are deaf or students with disabilities. And so they had these AmeriCorps participants. Some of them were tutoring students, and then some of them were helping build out programming for adults with disabilities here in the Albuquerque community.
And Kathy, really the question that remains right now, at least in my head and maybe some of our listeners as well, is why AmeriCorps decided to slash this funding so abruptly.
So according to reporting from the Associated Press, the White House has pointed to some improper payments reported by AmeriCorps. I think it was totaling more than $40 million last year, and those were attributed to documentation issues and miscoded expenses. And so the White House has said, that's why we're making these staffing cuts. That's why we're cutting these grants. But a lot of states have taken issue with that because AmeriCorps is an agency, it's a federal agency that was set up by Congress. So there is a lawsuit that New Mexico is part of arguing that, the Trump administration doesn't have the authority to make such a drastic staffing cut at this agency and to unilaterally cut funding that's already been allocated, right? Like these grants have already been received in some cases, some of these AmeriCorps participants had already started their time of service and were expected to go on for a period of time. And so it's very unusual to cut a grant partway through.
And Kathy, here in New Mexico, a lot of vulnerable communities rely on that AmeriCorps funding to carry out their work, but now it seems they're going to have to seek alternative funding sources.
Yeah, so talking to the folks at the Albuquerque Sign Language Academy, they're very determined to keep building out their program, right? Like they're building out this adult workforce training center for adults with disabilities, which is an expansion of what they already do, right? And they're very committed to continuing to build out that programming, but it might be a little slower, right? Because they had this influx of AmeriCorps volunteers, which was helping them expand this programming, right? They've got some painting classes, they've got some classes teaching people how to make coffee and do customer service. And so it may be slower adding programming than they originally planned. They told me that there's definitely some positions that they don't have funding for that they might have to cut. And, when I spoke with Jennifer Martinez with the school, she said she really felt bad for some of these volunteers. She had one woman who had just quit her job and she was scheduled to start as an AmeriCorps participant with them on Monday, so next week. And so now she has to figure out what she's going to do. Kind of a difficult situation.
So a lot of individuals and organizations left to pick up the pieces after AmeriCorps abruptly cuts their funding. Journal Federal Government reporter Kathy Cook with the latest. Thanks for joining us, Kathy.
Thank you so much for having me, Gino.
A Singapore-based solar company in 2023 committed to a $1 billion investment and 1,800 jobs at a planned Albuquerque manufacturing facility. But the company is standing on shaky financial ground as it nears a year of blocked imports to the United States. With more on this, I'm now joined by the Journal's assistant business editor, Megan Gleason. Megan, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Gino.
So, Megan, you recently penned a story about Maxeon's financial struggles and the implications it could have because the company is planning to move here to Albuquerque, and that move has a lot of implications around this $1 billion investment and the 1,800 jobs it could bring.
Yeah, so this is a Singapore-based company, Maxeon Solar Technologies. They manufacture solar cell and panel technology. And they announced in 2023 that they were going to set up shop in Albuquerque in our Mesa del Sol area, a huge facility, but plans kept getting delayed in the implementation of that facility. And they have said now construction has started in some phases at the facility, but in the meantime, they actually leased out another building for 5 years to do smaller scale manufacturing instead. But they had their financial filings were released this week, and they're pretty dim.
And Megan, dim is the right word to use. They reported a $614.3 million loss in the 2024 fiscal year and a 54% drop in their revenue as well. But a lot of that they're saying is due to some bans on their imports at the U.S. border by U.S. Customs. And the reason for that, according to U.S. Customs, is Maxeon's alleged violations of the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act.
Yeah, it's a little vague. I mean, Maxeon reported that the CBP is not alleging that they have violated this act, but they are bringing up, Maxeon themselves are bringing up that we are in full compliance with this act and we should be able to come to the U.S. And they did try to protest the detainment in March, but CBP denied it, which is why they're pursuing legal action.
And that legal action that Maxeon is pursuing, Megan, what's the latest on that?
The CEO did say they have commenced legal action, in quotes. They didn't go super in depth on to what that means, but they stand by the fact that their products should not be being held at the border and not justifiable.
And as far as support that Maxeon is receiving here in New Mexico, what are officials saying here?
They're totally standing behind them. I called Economic Development Secretary Rob Black and I asked if he's feeling a little nervous with these poor financial results, and he said this is all stemming from all those shipments being held up at the border, and he's hopeful that that's going to get resolved. So they still feel like Maxeon is going to bring a really good impact to New Mexico.
So despite their imports being held up at the border and poor financial results, still some support for Maxeon here in New Mexico as they look to bring that investment and jobs to Albuquerque. Journal assistant business editor Megan Gleason with the latest. Thank you so much, Megan.
Thanks, Gino.
And in other headlines from the newsroom, the city of Albuquerque condemned the Court John Motel in the North Valley on Thursday due to severe code violations and its reputation as a hub for crime, including drug trafficking, violence, and prostitution. This marks the 6th motel shut down by the city in the past year. The property lacked a valid certificate of occupancy and had dangerous living conditions such as faulty plumbing, exposed wiring, and pest infestations. Despite this, some residents were paying up to $1,400 a month. One resident, Leticia Ramirez, was recently charged with fentanyl tracking from the motel. The Albuquerque Police Department reported nearly 1,000 calls near the property, with dozens of crimes occurring on site. The city relocated all 15 displaced residents to temporary or long-term housing. While none of the closed motels have reopened yet, 3 have applied for permits to begin remediation and potential reopening. And a city hearing officer has ordered Quirky Used Books in Albuquerque to remove a homeless encampment from its parking lot within 2 weeks or face a $1,500 fine. The ruling focuses solely on a violation of a city ordinance prohibiting camping on public property, while dismissing other alleged allegations related to litter, weeds, and outdoor storage. The bookstore, which has hosted up to 18 unhoused individuals since July 2024, plans to appeal the decision, arguing the New Mexico Constitution protects property use and safety rights. However, the hearing officer stated constitutional questions were beyond his purview and emphasized the issue is about zoning limits on private property. The city expressed satisfaction with the ruling, saying it hopes it leads to compliance. Another hearing remains pending but may be dropped if the bookstore complies. Despite the outcome, the officer praised the bookstore's owner Gilliam Curley as a quote altruistic idealist trying to address homelessness in good faith. If you like hearing all of the latest news from the Albuquerque Journal here on the Leading News, consider becoming a digital subscriber to the Albuquerque Journal. You can check our show notes for a discount code on a digital subscription and keep up with all the latest news from New Mexico's leading news source. Now taking a look at Albuquerque's weather forecast, there is a slight chance of rain showers between noon and 3 p.m., partly sunny with a high near 73. As for this evening, a chance of showers and thunderstorms exists before 9 p.m., mostly cloudy with a low around 46. To keep up with all the latest news from the Albuquerque Journal, you can visit our website at abqjournal.com. That's the Leading News. I'm Gino Gutierrez. We'll be back on Monday.